Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever the fuck you're watching this episode. Another episode of the Blitz. Thank you guys for tuning in. Backyard Blitz, brought to you by Backyard Sports Media. I got Gary Freeze with me. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Good to see you. Good weekend of football, and we're
If
about to
you
find out
if
who's
you say
going to
so.
the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, um, it's gonna be a good weekend for sure. I think we're gonna have some good, friendly, beastly competition in the AFC, and we're gonna have some. And I think we've got a pretty even matchup in the NFC, and we'll get into that a little later. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off in order of which how the games were played, and you know, Jags Chiefs. Jags had them going for a little bit, had me going there in the first half, um, and we've got a bit of upsetting news for the Chiefs fans, as we had kind of a tough injury for Irish Patty Mahomes, and that's concern that we'll have to address whenever we're making our AFC predictions. Um, but yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are moving on to the AFC Championship. Um, I mean, they continue to just be a dominant team. It's the perseverance of Pat Mahomes to stay in the game and secure the win despite the odds that he was up against. I mean, we saw Tony Pollard take a similar injury, and we'll get to the Cowboys game here in a little bit. I do believe that Pollard's injury was a little worse, but it was definitely severe enough to where it was it sucks, man. Like that whole situation. I want to see perfect health Pat against Joey Burr, who is on just this absolutely beast mode trajectory, right? So, anyways, what were your thoughts on that Jags Chiefs game?
Yeah, hey Dad, thanks for joining.
Senior, always a pleasure.
Yeah, tough loss for the Bills, but yeah, this was an interesting game. I don't think at the beginning of the season anybody had the Jags here. I don't think even in that locker room they really would have expected something like this. I think they're building, and you know, if they had said at the beginning of the season what would be a successful season for us, it would be growth from Lawrence, ATN be healthy, and start to see some of those big free agent wide receivers. Hey, Stove. Um, See some of those free agent wide receivers start to do something. And Christian Kirk did that. And Zay Jones at times did that this year. The big surprise for them was Evan Ingram, and I think that it would be in their best interest to bring him back. So this is probably more, I can almost guarantee it's more than they really would have expected. And it's something to build on. They won a playoff game in a really dramatic fashion. They learned how to win tight games this year. It's not the same old Jags, lose, 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 and just kind of
Yeah,
shoot yourself in the foot. Dougie P's got them playing well. So I think you put it perfectly, right? The trajectory that the Jags are on right now is nose up. And I think you got to keep that going this off season. But you're absolutely right. The injury to Mahomes kind of changes everything. It even changed this game, I think. The Jags were plucky and they were, hanging around. But with a hobbled Mahomes, I would have expected them to do a little better getting pressure on him, and they didn't. So that's one thing. I thought when I said last week if the Jags were going to win, it was going to be by getting pressure from those young guys, but um, they didn't really do it. And we'll see what they do this offseason, really creating some pressure and maybe signing a free agent, probably going to be drafting a guy early. And I don't listen. I think Joe Burrow is the face of the NFL, to be honest, man. We're going to talk about him in a minute, but I think Joe Burrow right now is the face of the NFL. Although Patty is up there, right? He's one of those guys that's out front. Allen being overrated, maybe a little bit. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Uh,
got a little bit of that Romo syndrome.
I think McCarthy is a good part of the issue in Dallas, but he ain't the only issue in Dallas. And we'll
Yeah, I
talk
mean,
about that
my
in a
my
minute too.
immediate question about the McCarthy point is who called the last play? And we will fucking get to that. So with that being said, I do want to make a quick point though. If you are the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have to be walking away from the season thinking this is a W. Like, we
Yes.
did great. We've established a good routine. We've got a good rhythm going with our offense. We understand how we need to utilize this, what should be a prolific quarterback. You've got tools in the right place. You've got some tweaks and adjustments you'll have to make in the offseason. Hopefully you get some good enough draft picks to be able to make some things happen to build around this quarterback. But Doug Peterson doing big things. So like if I'm a Jags fan, I'm completely satisfied with the season. Like we've done enough. And it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of Pat Mahomes' injury, you lost to the Chiefs.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
my big thing is that word satisfied. Maybe as a fan, you're like, yeah, okay, we're building for something, but I guarantee you those players in that locker room were not satisfied after that loss.
Of course not.
However, right, in the aftermath of it, you get to Wednesday, you get to Thursday, you get to Friday, and you do your exit interviews with Dougie P and the GM and all this. You start to reflect on the season, and yes, you're absolutely right? This was a win of a season for a team that was really, really, really bad in 2022 and had the number 1 overall pick in 2021 when they took, after the 2021 season, when they took Trevor Lawrence, who, now, or I'm mixing fucking years up, but they've been really bad, had the number 1 pick. They were awful last year. And then this year, they really turned it around. Huge turnaround, 9 wins, win your division, and you're in the playoffs. You win a fucking playoff game in historic fashion.
Oh, for sure.
That's a huge win. And I think you're absolutely right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, when the sting of losing and your season ending passes, not only are the fans going to look at it and say, fuck, man, we've got something going here. This team's going to say, fuck, man, we got something going here.
I won't speak for the players. They're obviously disappointed when you don't walk onto the gridiron thinking like, look, if we can just make it past Super Wild Card Weekend, we're set, right?
Exactly.
Like, no, you're not looking at just the divisional round. You're not looking at the AFC Championship. You were looking at the fucking Super Bowl, unless you're Aaron Rodgers, then you're counting MVPs. But
and Bucks,
I guess, 6 in one hand, half a dozen hits of ayahuasca in the other. But I think that my concern or my point was entirely about the fan base. I think
100%.
The fan base, you have to be content with that, right?
Yeah.
So
sucks to have your season end.
And look, I said it.
2023 looks real bright for the Jacksonville.
I'm not trying to jump ahead, but the Dallas Cowboys fans, like the real ones, the realistic Cowboys fans, we need to take away from this a very simple fact. We got to a divisional round, and we have room to grow. We have changes that need to make, and we'll get into that later. But in the meantime, let's get into the next game that happens on Saturday. Giants-Eagles NFC East showdown for who is going to represent the NFC on one side of the gridiron for the NFC Championship. And the Eagles absolutely fucking dominated, right? Like there wasn't even, hey, listen, Gary, there wasn't even a fucking chance, bud. There wasn't even a chance. It was never close.
Oh,
shit.
Those got something to say about the Cowboys.
Hey, listen.
You done messed up, bud.
You also got the link in the chat that so up on Bring the Smoke. I'm here for it. I'm just saying I missed you, buddy. I'm just trying to stir the pot to see if we're going to heat the stove up. You feel me? So
this game felt a lot more like what the Giants are. To be honest, honestly,
well, the magic.
I understand your record is what your record is, but this is more of what the Giants are. And for anybody who thinks that the Giants are a piece or two away because they went 8-7-1 on the season, or 9-7-1 on the season, and won a playoff game against a Vikings team that was the most underachieving team that I think I can remember. I don't know how they were a 13-win team and just fell apart, or 12-win team, and just they were living on hopes and dreams a lot of each week. It was Cousins coming back from down, or they were getting a miracle kick from Greg Joseph, or they were getting a miracle turnover late in the game, and against the Bills, especially when that fucking fumble from Josh Allen on a quarterback sneak. Like it was always just that weird shit, and they were sort of like the Giants in that manner. And this is more of what I think the Giants are, and this is more of why I say, like, Giants fans, appreciate what you got this season, because this isn't what you're going to be next season. Brian Daboll worked some magic. They had something going on offense, but Daniel Jones is not a franchise quarterback. You have no wide receivers, and Saquon Barkley was healthy this year, and this is what he can be when healthy. He's been healthy twice in his career, and he's in his fourth year going into his fifth year. I just think that this is much, much closer to what the Giants and Giants fans should expect from this team next year. They've got a lot of pieces to work on, a lot of holes to fill,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be, they're not going to be a lock for the playoffs next year.
Well, we talked about the Magic all year, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it. It made no sense
Mhm.
to get where they were.
He only
Listen.
finished 76 receptions away from his bonus, so
Look, he almost had him.
just
Almost. You gotta be quicker than that.
so you're
I
telling
just
me there's a chance.
dude, it was, yeah. I mean, fucking lights out, best possible peak game could likely maybe catch you a dozen.
Right.
But I think that regardless of who, even if you are a Giants fan, if you were just a realistic sports fan in general, you could not have thought that was going to end with the Giants coming out on top. Like, the magic has to stop somewhere. This is not the Eli Manning New York Giants, right? This is not the ones that dethroned Tom Brady. This is none of that. This is Brian Daboll having some fucking magic up his sleeve, having some Michael secret stuff. And, and it wore out, against Philly at home. And, Philly at home's a tough fucking place to play. Not to mention that rivalry in and of itself, not even just the fact that they're both NFC East teams, they are a stone's throw away from each other. And so, yeah, there was no way that game was going to end any other way. And it ended the way that it should have. I mean, the Giants performed in that game the way they should have performed throughout the entire season. And so it was, Philly was obviously the much better team. And
yeah, and the thing that Philly got going that they hadn't gotten going over the last few weeks when they were kind of struggling down the stretch is the run game. They got the run game going. Yeah. Hurts looked like he was much more healthy in this game. They didn't ask him to make a ton of deep ball throws, so I'll be curious if San Francisco can force him into some of those third and longs, or take away the run and they start taking some shots on first down, how that shoulder's going to react. But they got the running game going, and that was a big. The 268 yards of rushing in the playoffs, you're probably going to win that game.
Yeah.
And they
grease.
did in big fashion. Yep. And the Giants offense never got going. The Eagles defense, if they get ahead of you, they've got guys that can rush the passer, and they've been putting pressure on the quarterback at really like an historical rate this year. So you can't really get behind them, and I think the Niners are going to feel that if they let the Eagles get kind of out of touch with them next weekend. It's not going to be easy to make a comeback because they can really get after the passers. So I'm curious to see how that matchup's going to go. I don't want to spoil it too much, but that's really what Philly got going in this game, was the run game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't want to get too heavily into the NFC picks for this weekend, but yeah, I mean, ultimately the run game is going to be the big difference maker, and to see how they can do, because like we saw into the Cowboys Niners game, I mean, the run game was the one thing that kind of killed Dallas in the end. One of the things that kind of killed Dallas in the second half there. Losing Tony Pollard was a tough blow, but either way, I mean, we've beat a dead horse enough on this one. The better team won, to no one's surprise. And this, I feel like, surprised a lot of people. I know Bills Mafia Senior, I apologize. This was a tough one. Yeah, the weather was Buffalo weather, right? And I'm not going to talk too much about the neutral site bullshit, although Joey Burr's response to that was
send him the refund. He's a savage, dude. He's a savage.
He's coach proof. He's media proof. Like, this is the guy you want. This is the ultimate take home to mom quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, that was another example. The better team won there. You know, we saw that Buffalo was looking ever so slightly exposed going into these last few weeks. That playoff football weather, man, you were not kidding. I mean, I remember watching the game and seeing them like, oh yeah, and Damar Hamlin's family's up in the box, and like, you can't see them, dude. You can't see them through the fucking whiteout. You can't see them in the box. Period. So like you could see the outline of a jersey, maybe. But that was about it. So yeah, I thought it was funny every time because they kept trying to do it and it just was not a good look. Appropriate maybe that
Sure.
that they lose by 3 possessions to pay homage to Hamlin, sure. But it's a tough go, man. It's a tough go. I hate that for Buffalo. This is one of those matchups where I never wanted either team to really lose. Like, this is what I really wanted to see in the AFC Championship, period, for me. And it's nothing against the Chiefs. They're a great team, and the Jags were never ready to compete in that league to begin with this year. These 3 teams are way too fucking dangerous. But but yeah, so I mean, ultimately, Joe Burrow is he's a savage on and off the field, and that's what it was. I mean, he was dragging brain on this team.
Yeah, I think it came down to a couple things. My dad brings up one big one. Buffalo, they seem like they just refuse to commit to the run game. Devin Singletary runs the ball for about 5 yards a carry. It seems like in most games, and they just give him 6 touches, 8 touches, 10 touches. Run the fucking ball, right? Run the ball, take the pressure off the passing game, take the pressure off the offensive line, and take the pressure off the defense that's facing fucking Joey Burrow, right? Like, let's be realistic here. But Ken Dorsey,
diversify the offensive scheme, man.
Right. Ken Dorsey's a mess. I don't know if they're going to keep him. I imagine 1 year is not going to be enough for them to say, well, it's not good enough. Cincy defense, yeah, that's another thing, right? It came down to Lou Anarumo is maybe the best defensive coordinator in all of the NFL, and that includes Bill Belichick. I'm including Bill Belichick right now because I've seen Lou Anarumo be able to do some things that I haven't seen coaches do to opposing teams since Bill Belichick was in his prime with those Patriots dynasty teams. Being able to take away the other team's best player while also still being able to get pressure up front, but confusing them with those fronts. Lou's rushing 3 guys, getting pressure and covering with 8. That's some serious coach him up. So that's 2 things this came down to. The other big thing is that the Bills really missed Von Miller. If they had Von Miller, maybe they could have gotten a little more pressure on Burrow. He's a finisher. He lets the other guys run free because he's always eating a double team. And they don't have another guy on that roster that's a world beater, a finisher. They've got a lot of really good players, Phillips and Basham and Oliver. Like, those guys are good. But Von Miller is a difference maker, and that defense really missed him. Offensively, establish the run. Once it started snowing, you couldn't just ignore the run. Defensively, they couldn't get any pressure on Cincy. Opposite, Cincy obviously got a ton of pressure, but Joe Burrow is just fucking Joe Burrow too. Missing 3 offensive starters on the offensive line, 3 starters on the offensive line. Cincy was able to run the ball at will, and Joe Burrow was never really under pressure in that game. It was a magnificent job by Zach Taylor and company for Cincinnati. And I think Buffalo came to the plate a little unprepared with their game plan. And that falls on McDermott, Dorsey, and Frazier. The team was flat, and it felt like they were pretty unprepared. And they didn't really make any in-game adjustments to go to anything that was different, unique, anything like that. I think they just felt like they were just going to line up and be able to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it did almost seem arrogant that they just expect to execute the same game plan and eventually Cincinnati will fold. And we haven't seen that from Cincinnati in 6-7 weeks.
They're not going anywhere.
They're not fucking going nowhere.
Not with Joey Big Dick Burrow over there.
Dude, it's too much. Like, you can't believe that. And That's kind of where I'm at. And Stove's comment about Cincy D, I mean, that was very like it reminded me a lot of watching Dallas against the Bucks, where that pressure was just it put even the great Tom Brady on his ass too much, to where he's spending way too much time on his heels, didn't have enough time to get through his reads, under pressure, having to scramble out of the pocket, throw it up to the seam, whatever it is that he needed to do to dispose of that ball. And why not open up the run game? Like every guy who watched that game at some point in time was saying, run the fucking ball. It just didn't make any sense.
For sure.
Didn't make any sense. And yeah, I mean, you talked about the injuries and everything that was going on with the Cincinnati front, the offensive front. That was my only concern.
That was the only concern I had. I thought Buffalo was going to get pressure. They didn't.
They didn't. So I will get my own little spiel out of this, and I'll just open the floor for you to just drag brain as needed. Listen, first half, great performance. We had a great combination of the run game. Again, that kind of what we saw last week, where Dak was he was taking his time going through his reads. He was not necessarily focused on. He wasn't focused. He did it a couple times, admittedly, where, 2nd and 10, and he's throwing the fucking deep ball. And it's like, dude, just get the first down. You were on your own 30-yard line. Get the fucking first down. Stop trying to be that guy. You're not a gunslinger. So don't be that guy. You're not Pat Mahomes. You're not Josh Allen. Do not try to do that. CD is nowhere near that caliber. Just get focus on your slots. Keep Dalton Schultz hands busy, which we'll get to fucking Schultz in a minute. Okay? We'll get to Schultz in a fucking minute. Brett Maher misses the first kick, and not just because it's deflected. If that shit isn't touched, it's fucking 10 yards left, dude. It's 10 yards left.
Jesus.
And thank God the announcers are fucking roasting this man, because he deserved it. And then finally, after multiple risky fourth down attempts where we, convert, we get it done in the first half, it looks good. We finally managed to just drill one from 43. And shaking it off now. So now I'm thinking, okay, we're in the game. We're fine. We're good. So we get into the second half. The big momentum difference for me has to be Pollard's injury. As soon as Tony Pollard got injured, the fucking momentum was gone, dude. There was no wind in the sails, period. And I'm not trying to discredit the efforts of the San Francisco defense. The adjustments that they were making in game, from what I can understand, they were second to none. There's a reason why this is one of the most disrespectful defenses in the NFL. And so it showed. They took advantage. Zeke was never going to be able to carry the run game in that. It just wasn't going to happen. And now we see posts from Zeke talking about willing to take less money to stay on the team, which is great, bud, because you're going to take less money wherever the fuck you go. So if for whatever reason we feel so inclined as to keep you on payroll, it should be because you are going to be a fullback. You're going to be a third and short. You're going to be a whatever the fuck Pollard is not big enough to handle back. That's where you're going to be, because Pollard needs the franchise tag, and we need to move the fuck on from the run game and continue to do whatever it is that we need to do. I mean, look, I can beat up the quarterback situation all we want, but let's get to Dalton. Let's get to Schultz. Schultzy it's going to be another topic of conversation later on in the game, or later on in the show. It's situational awareness, clock management. The 2 feet in bounds thing, I almost want to give it to him, because it was a hair, right? Like a hair positive control. He lifted his foot up just a hair too late, or a hair too early. I'm fine with that. Not understanding that the clock is going to continue to run because you had backwards motion. Like, I didn't know that. Me personally, I had no clue that was a thing.
He's a professional football player, though.
Exactly. Right? That's my point. He is a fucking he does this for a living. Okay.
Here's the crazy thing about that, too, to piggyback on what you're saying right now. He did it twice. Only got hit with it once. The play before that, he was going backwards, and I texted my brother and said the clock should be moving. He got away with that. Then he fucking did it on the next play. Like, what
Yeah.
are you doing, guy? You got away with it once. You ain't gonna get away with it again.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, that, and also just the last thing was just the initial late hit against Dallas was absolute bullshit. Like that was not bullshit. He was not out of bounds. That was complete bullshit. The next late hit call after that was completely fair, and not just because it was against, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it was against San
Greenlaw
Francisco.
didn't even protest. He just hung his head and walked away.
Yeah.
Because he knew.
He had 2 feet out of bounds,
Yeah,
and you fucking
he had 2 feet out of bounds, and the running back had 2 feet.
It was just unnecessary, man. But anyways, yeah, I'll get to Schultz here in a little bit, but yeah, I mean the fucking last play. The last play. I hope that the San Francisco 49ers send a bill. I'm assuming it's a company probably like Hella's or whoever that works on the turf or works on the grass in that field. But the massive Ezekiel Elliott shaped dent in the field, that repair has to be expensive. There is a crater at midfield where this man got, bro, this man, concussion protocol.
Blown up doesn't even do it service.
He got fucking, it's so much worse than like leveled. He got trucked, dude. I mean, you would have thought that he had opposite of him, that he had like, fuck, I don't know, dude. You would have thought it was like the Troy Polamalu play where he's like 10 yards across the line of scrimmage and starts running as the ball's getting snapped. That level momentum. He got fucking just annihilated. That was hilarious to watch. Dak sails the pass like an asshole. And I don't know what the intent of I kind of think I understand the intent of the play, but that's not the play, dude. Just go the classic Hail Mary and call it a fucking day, bud. Yeah. That's where I'm at with it. Anyways.
They didn't even give themselves a chance at fucking pitchy woo-woo either. Like, it's just terrible. The last play. I mean, I'll start there, but yeah, I actually still, if I'm going to come back to that, I agree with Stove that the first half was competitive, and I think what changed it, let me finish on the last play of the game because that's what we were just talking about. But so the last play of the game, I don't know exactly what the whole plan was, right? You got Zeke in the center of the field, and I understand, like, on the very surface of that you want your athletes, your playmakers on the field, and it's probably Pollard, I would guess, might be in that position on another day when he's not injured. Maybe Pollard's there, but you've got offensive linemen out in space, and they had 2 offensive linemen down the field early before the ball was thrown, right next to the guy that caught the ball. No flag. What the refs are thinking, I don't know. But you want offensive linemen out in space messing around on this play? Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Just run the fucking pitchy woo-woo. Line up, a lot of laterals, and we're done. And then Dak, of course, like you said, sails the ball as Dak fucking does. I don't get it. It's the worst play call I think I can remember. There was the swinging gate play that the Dolphins once ran that made no sense either. I don't know. Just crazy stuff. I don't get it. But let's talk the game, right? So first half, I think, was good in the sense that you were, as Stove put it, you kept the Niners in check, right?
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I gave way too much credit to the offense by saying it was a good first half. Defensively, we did what we needed to do, and that was keeping Christian McCaffrey to fucking nothing, right? Like I think he finished the half at single digits, right? Like it was a great first half defensively. So allow me to clarify. Stove, thank you for keeping me straight, bud.
Yeah. So you ended up with, a first half you should have been, I think you should have been comfortably ahead going into the locker room, but Dak does as Dak does and throws a pick. And I think that changed the whole first half for you guys. Throws a pick in the other half, and then they're in positive territory, throws a pick. The Niners go back, they get a field goal. Suddenly the game is totally different going into the locker room. That's, I think, right there is probably where you lost the game. The Pollard thing, that's a bad injury. It's unfortunate. And I do think that it changed the momentum of the game. Yeah, LOL Dak, perfect. I do think it changed the momentum of the game. So that's another factor that changed this game. I still think that the Dak interception is really where this game changed, because you're down there. You might get a field goal. I don't know if Maher's going to make the kick, but worst case scenario, you're going to run it down to no time left. You miss a field goal, whatever, we go into the locker room, but San Fran goes and gets points off that Dak pick. That's not good. And then from that point forward, Dak was out of sorts. They couldn't do anything offensively. Dak cannot read defenses. I don't know how he's been as prolific as he's been, other than the fact that like he does it against bad teams. Because when he plays a defense that makes him get off his first or second read, he's fucking terrible. Fucking terrible. And that is not a $40 million fucking quarterback, no matter how you try to twist that. All these talking heads on like ESPN and NFL Network all the time are like, oh yeah, Dak's top 5 quarterback. The fuck he is. He may be a top 5 quarterback against the fucking Washington Commanders if he played them every fucking week, but he ain't no good against a good fucking team. He's fucking awful when he plays good teams. And this is what you run into. The game against the Bucs. The Bucs were 8-9, and everybody's like, oh yeah, they righted the ship. It's Cowboys time. They're going to make a run here. They're going to beat the Niners. The Bucs were 8-9, and for 3/4 to 4/5 of this season, they were a fucking awful team. Any other division, they finished 5th. And there's only 4 teams in the fucking division. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that people thought that the Buccaneers was all this righting this ship. However, for me, I thought that the defense was going to be able to carry the weight. The offense really set them up for failure. It's the turnovers. That's the biggest thing for me, is that they were outplayed so bad offensively. That defense did a stellar job. And that was what I thought when I made the pick last week. I said, this defense is going to make Brock look like a rookie quarterback, and they did. And I said it on the page. I don't know how Brock gets away with a lot of throws he gets away with. He hit Diggs between the numbers once. He hit Wilson in the hands once. He just gets away with these bad throws. They don't get picked. And that was a big difference in the game as well. The Cowboys couldn't capitalize on turnover opportunities, whereas the Niners didn't miss those opportunities. And that it all kind of added up to the perfect storm. And then, of course, we get down to the end of the game. And in the Schultz thing, you mentioned the Schultz thing. That's 100% on coaching. That should be ingrained in their head every single week. We're in 2-minute mode, and we're going over 2-minute mode, and we're talking about how we stop the clock, what we're doing if the clock doesn't stop, what happens if you're moving backwards, going out of bounds, because that's a huge thing every week in the NFL.
Yeah, you
college,
truck
it doesn't
forward
matter.
at all
College,
costs.
It doesn't matter. But Schultz has been in the league now, what, 4 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
Get that shit out of your head. Yeah. I mean, Stove, I think we're all in agreement that Pollard's the better running back on that team now, right?
He had a majority of the carries leading up to that,
Zeke
right?
and I know Zeke is still getting that running back one money, but you know, there's no secret about it. Pollard's the best running back on that team.
No doubt. Well, it is unfortunate outcome for Cowboys fans, but you know, we'll see how this matchup looks like here in the NFC Championship here shortly. But let's get to the most important part of our show. God damn it. Stove. Yeah. I mean,
bad money.
Well, we've done that with 2 big players on that team, right? So the quarterback position and the running back position. So, you know, if that's not Jerry Jones' operation.
Dude, DeMarcus Lawrence is $26 million on your cap next year.
Well, thanks for that. Let's get to the most important part of our episode. We are a veteran-owned podcast, and every episode that we have, that we host, that we post, is dedicated to a fallen service member. And this episode is going to be dedicated to Marine Lance Corporal Harry Swain IV. He was 21 years old, from Cumberland, New Jersey. He was assigned to 1st Battalion, 2nd Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. He was killed January 31st by enemy combat action in Babel Province, Iraq. Marine Lance Corporal Harry Swain IV. We have the watch. No beverages tonight. I'm sipping on the Chick-fil-A.
Is that Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A soda, the Lord's chicken.
The Lord's chicken.
Yeah, might need to go into hibernation this year, Josh.
Yeah. Wait.
So we'll see. Well, I suppose we should just go ahead and get into our championship picks. So starting with the NFC, we have the San Francisco 49ers in Philly against Philly. And I'd said earlier, I feel like this is going to be a closer matchup of the two. Again, the big variable here is that Brock Purdy, like you said, gets away with more shit than he probably should. Jalen Hurts is coming off of a dominant performance against the Giants. Run game's reestablished, and they're going to need it because this defense is the real deal. So with that, Gary, I will open the floor to you. Who is your NFC champion pick?
Yeah, this one I think is going to be a little nip tuck. And it's going to come down to who can establish the offensive front and run the ball, because both teams want to run the ball and set up play actions, set up the RPO game. I think that San Francisco is going to have a better outcome or more success doing that. I think that the team speed for the 49ers on defense is a huge difference maker in this game. Fred Warner, especially, a guy that can cover sideline to sideline, is probably going to be in spy mode on Jalen Hurts quite a bit this weekend. And he can really negate a lot of that read option stuff. So for me, I think the San Francisco defense is going to make enough of a difference in this game. And I've got the Niners winning probably in a real tight, maybe field goal game. And they've got the ultimate X factor on special teams. Robbie Gould doesn't miss in the playoffs.
Yeah. So you've got the Niners. We are in alignment there. And it's not just because the Eagles are who they are.
I'm surprised, man. I thought you were actually going to pick the Eagles.
I was leaning on the Eagles. I really was. I feel like the reestablishment of the run game kind of led me to believe that they could do it. But again, I mean, who does San Fran have in the run game? You know, we've got Christian fucking McCaffrey over there in San Fran doing big things, and you know, not so much against the Cowboys, but
that was a great performance by the Cowboys defense, though.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So is the Eagles defense in comparison going to be able to shut down Christian McCaffrey the way the Dallas Cowboys defense did? And I don't think that they can. I don't think that they can. And I think that is going to allow them to pull ahead. And I do feel like the San Francisco defense is better than the Philly defense. So are they going to be able to contain Jalen Hurts is the real question. I mean, 100%, because that is a 100%. Wiry son of a bitch. So is he going to be able to – it depends on the pressure, right? Are they going to be able to keep that pressure on him? Are they going to be able to keep him on his heels? Does the weather bother San Francisco? Senior, that's a great question too. You know, obviously they got to play in beautiful weather last weekend. I don't think so, man. I don't think so. You know, I don't know what
the style of offense they play. I think that they're okay.
Yeah.
In a bad weather game. I honestly think that the style of play might even favor San Francisco, because Philly tries to get really vertical in the pass game, and that's hard in bad weather. So if there is bad weather this weekend, I think that takes A.J. Brown out of the mix, and I think that takes Devontae Smith out of the mix quite a bit. And then that offense really kind of becomes run the ball, and if you can't pop on the runs, then it really becomes kind of pedestrian.
Well, who is San Francisco going to rely on? They're going to rely on two people. They're going to rely on Deebo Samuel, and they're going to rely on Christian McCaffrey. And those guys are not necessarily weatherproof, but they don't need airtime. So,
Stove, fucker, you would ask this question.
What the fuck, Stove? I mean, you can't deny it at this point.
That's the truth. I think
you can't deny it, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, have tried to discredit that idea. Mm-hmm. But even though it was the Giants, he still had a fantastic season. Yeah. Yep. He's pieced together some really great games.
They're 15-1 this year when he plays.
I mean, come on, dude. Come on. Yeah, I mean, you've got to think people need to really sit down and come to realizations that he is an elite level quarterback. He is in that top 5 conversation.
Yeah, I fucking hate to say it, but he's going to be right there. I would, if I'm going to put him in the elite group, he's going to be the bottom of the elite group, but he's going to be right there. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Stove. I just wanted to hear him say that. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Do you put Kirk ahead of Dak?
Yeah, I still do. Minnesota didn't lose because of Kirk. Honestly, like, we can hate on Kirk all we want, but they didn't lose because of him. You give 37 points to the fucking Giants, dude. Like, yeah, right, Stove. Like, Dak just can't. As much as we give Kirk prime time and yada yada fucking issues, like, Dak can't beat anybody good. Kirk beats teams above 500, maybe only at 1 o'clock, but he beats them, right? Like, Dak just doesn't beat teams that are over 500. I think what's he now, like 3-16 or something in his career against playoff teams? Like, no. Kirk's above Dak, honestly.
Well, we got the Stove stamp of approval on that thought too.
Right. Look, I don't sound crazy now.
I think, yeah. Finally, I think that this year's probably I was gonna say I think that this season was kind of the nail in the coffin on that theory. He had a chance. And quarterback versus quarterback. I mean, Brock Purdy versus Dak. This should have been kind of if Dak was anywhere worth his weight in salt, then.
Right. If he played like a $40 million quarterback,
right,
they probably win that game easily. As
100%.
Good as that defense played.
Yeah, and instead we got classic Dak. I mean, it was
what's
a couple.
What's going to be the most frustrating? Like, if I take off my Commander's hat and I put on a Cowboys hat, what would be the most frustrating realization for me as a fan is the same realization I have with Ron Rivera. He's going to be just good enough every year for Dallas to say, well, we can't improve.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep him around because he does throw for 4,000 yards. He does throw 30 to 40 touchdowns. He does do a lot of things against really bad teams that make you go, whoa, this offense is really good.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove and it's big games, he loses and you get so frustrated that you're like, fuck, I just want him out of here. But if you're the GM, you look at it and you say, we're winning a lot of games. If we could just get some pieces around him again and bolster maybe the offensive line, yada, 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 that's what's frustrating.
He does just good enough to fuck us out of a good draft pick.
Just enough, man. Just enough. Mm-hmm.
So, all right, on to the AFC. And this is the real football, folks. Bengals, Chiefs. I really wish that we were talking about the peak Chiefs, Irish Patty Mahomes running at 100%. Stove, I mean, if you're going for the Chiefs, I'd love to hear it. I don't imagine that you are. I feel like, unfortunately, because of the injury, this is going to be kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. Well, Jerry's the
problem.
Jerry's
the biggest problem.
Jerry needs to fucking die.
Mike's a problem, but Jerry's a bigger problem.
Yeah. Come on, Stove. Give me Big Dick Burrow 10 out of 10 times, dude. And I also want to caveat here too. If Pat was at 100% capacity, give me Joe Burrow again. So I'm all in on Joey Burr. I'm 100% in. I rode with the Bills until last weekend. I rode with the Bills all the way until last weekend, and they were my Super Bowl favorites. They were who I expected to win it all this year was the Bills. And yeah, I mean, we saw some decline there in that team. And so now this weekend should be simply a formality for them to, punch their ticket to another Super Bowl. And yeah, I mean, we're going to get to see, I mean, we'll talk about it next weekend, but yeah, it's going to be a tough go for this Kansas City defense. It's going to be, I won't say it'll be a walk in the park, but it's definitely not going to be a super difficult game for this Cincinnati defense. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any reason to believe that? I mean, do the Chiefs even have a chance?
Yeah, they do, because I think that Andy Reid is one of the great minds in football offensively, and Steve Spagnuolo is one of the great minds in football defensively. So I do believe that the Chiefs, this isn't going to be a knockdown, drag out, blowout. They're not going to beat them, 41-7 or anything like that. But there's a couple of things that go into this for me, and it's the ability of Lou Anarumo to confuse Patrick Mahomes. We've seen it from him multiple times last season, this season, and in the playoffs last year. The Bengals seem to just have something. Even when they had Tyreek Hill last year, and then again this year during the regular season, they beat them. That defense seems to be able to stifle whatever it is that the Chiefs are trying to do with or without the cheetah. And that's a full credit to Lou Anarumo coaching his guys up. That's a full credit to the guys being disciplined and executing the game plan. And I do expect it again this weekend because you're going to have a stationary Pat Mahomes as well, who, for me, it's diminished, obviously. And I wouldn't be surprised if by halftime or so we saw Chad Henne again, because you just don't shake off that ankle sprain that he got. It was an ugly twist. I thought he broke his ankle, right? It was that ugly. He was fortunate he didn't break it.
Same.
I believe that he wouldn't go to the locker room because he thought he broke it, and he didn't want the x-ray to reveal that he broke it. He didn't want them to look at it so that he could keep playing. I just look at this and I say, diminished Mahomes. Burrow just feels like he's not going to let the Bengals lose. Lou Anarumo and that defense doing things against this Chiefs offense. I've got the Bengals. They may win comfortably. It's not going to be a crazy blowout. I believe in Andy Reid and I believe in Steve Spagnuolo to put a good game plan together to be competitive. I just don't know that they're going to have the horses, especially with Pat Mahomes hurt. I'm with you, though. I'm with you.
I think it's a two-possession game. I think it's a two-possession win.
Possessions is 10, maybe 13
10's
points.
the number for me. I think it's a 10-point win.
But I do agree with the guy to my right on the screen or my left on the screen that even with a healthy Mahomes, I'm taking the Bengals maybe by a field goal, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And then the whole coin flip thing they get to rally behind. They're proving people wrong. Bobby Boucher, right? But yeah.
Alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
No toothbrush. Something's wrong with your medulla oblongata. Excellent reference, though.
That's right. No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. Mama's right.
For sure, Dad. And they've got a lot of talent, but it just does feel like Joey's not going to let them lose.
Yeah.
Not going to let them lose. They're down 3 starting offensive linemen last week, and he just was Joe Cool. Joe Cool. And then after the game, he says, send him the refunds.
Yeah. I mean,
what's super funny about that is that every team sells those tickets ahead of time in their home stadium, but because this was going to be a neutral site field, like, they gave all this kind of bulletin board material to the Bengals. And, of course, the question came again after the game because they got the question all week. And he gets the opportunity to just drop the nuts on everybody.
Dude. Coach proof, and we will see this weekend if he's defense proof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It is going to be a good one. Picks are set. It's time to get in our bag.
Washington.
Damn it. That is a great video, though. I'm going to play it just because it's funny. Stowe put this together, I think, 2 years ago even. But it was definitely, it might have been last year. But Jamal Adams.
Washington. Jamal Adams. I'm the best in the nation.
On the outside, stop instead of what Ben thought was he was going to.
That's one of the great throwback clips of this fucking show.
Oh, God.
Anyway, let's get in our bag.
It's the sound effect for me.
Yeah, it is.
Onward in the bag. Senior asks, can Buffalo keep their core together while adding the necessary pieces to make a deeper run next year? I think that I've seen some concerning shit from Stephon Diggs this last weekend. That is my biggest concern with Buffalo. It's not just Josh and his ability to kind of think straight and think through the chaos. I mean, we may need to. This shit is classic.
After this segment, we're doing it.
I think that Stephon Diggs is the big variable for me, man. Like he's frustrated. This is another year where he's having to watch the other team from the opposite side of the field celebrate their win as they punch their ticket to the AFC champion. Like it is just, man. If you saw the clip, you know what I'm talking about. It's Diggs staring, talking shit to Josh Allen. This is the man who had there was no better QB wide receiver chemistry in the NFL, and now we're seeing this guys look like they're mid-divorce. It's concerning, man.
Yeah, for sure. We've got another mailbag question about Diggs too, so that's a good segue by you. That's why you're the best in the business.
Shit.
I'm with you a bit. I worry about a couple of things. So they're going to lose some defensive players. They just don't have the money to pay guys like Edmonds, Tremont Edmonds, and Carlos Hyde wants money, and Poyer wants money, and they're not going to be able to pay everybody. They've already paid Von Miller in free agency. They've already paid Josh. They've paid Steph. They've got a lot of guys that are already paid on that roster. It's going to be hard to keep the whole core together. Now, I say that by saying they're going to keep part of the core together. And is that core going to be enough? Maybe, right? The offense is really, really good at times. They've got to make a change philosophically on offense. It can't just be, I'm just going to call some bonehead fucking play and Josh is going to bail me out. They've got to hold Ken Dorsey accountable. They've got to figure out this offseason what it is about play calling and how they're going to find a balance and how they're going to find ways to make plays, because this offense was so spectacular in 2021 with Brian Daboll. It was really, really good at times this year, but it was really, really bad at other times. And I do think it is on Ken Dorsey on that side. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a change on the defensive side with Leslie Frazier, go with maybe a younger mind, because they're going to have to replace like guys like Edmonds and Poyer, and they're going to have to replace those guys with draft picks. And it looked like prior to the injury that DeMar Hamlin might be one of those guys, because he was kind of their thumper on the back end of that defense. So they're going to have to find another guy, right, to come in and replace. So they're going to have to draft well. They're going to have to sign somebody in free agency possibly that's a little cheaper, but might give them that. So can they? Yes, I do think they can. But I say that knowing full well that teams miss more often than they hit. So they may be looking next year at saying, we're going to have to outscore a lot of people. I worry about the defense with the Buffalo Bills next year. That's my big worry.
I just want to see an investment in the run game next year.
Absolutely.
It's got to happen.
They've got to just turn the reins over. Singletary's your first down back. James Cook, let him get some touches. You got to put the ball in the belly of somebody 25, 30 times a game.
Yeah. 100%. On to the next one. Brett Freeze.
Actually,
writes,
I'm going to go this one first because it's related. We'll say
Got it.
that one because it's fun.
Brett Freeze asks, after the post-game blow-up, subsequent tweets sort of passing blame on everyone else, what is it with Diggs? Is it passion or selfishness? Would Buffalo be better moving on? So I kind of hyped up the whole Steph. I kind of hyped it up about the Diggs, that whole altercation, but he is definitely passionate, right? I don't necessarily think that Diggs is selfish. I think that there's a lot of situations where you have a wide receiver who has no problem saying, Brett, fuck you. All right, I'll deal with you in a second. But anyways, listen.
That
you need
lettuce is real. Bro.
Listen, first off, Brett, you need to make like your hairline and fucking take a step back. Okay. So onward. I think that it's passion. Short answer. I think that it's passion. I don't I think that every wide receiver, especially someone to the caliber of Diggs, is going to be selfish to an extent. But how many times are we seeing a wide receiver get upset with their quarterback talking about, I'm open, but Josh Allen's on the opposite side of the fucking field scrambling from 350-pound men running full speed at him. Like, it just, there's context that needs to be provided here to that. So Diggs is passionate. He's an emotional player, but that's also what makes him a great player. Would Buffalo be better moving on? No. Would Josh Allen be good with an equally great wide receiver? Probably. I don't think
how many equally great wide receivers are there though in the league?
Exactly. Like, you're hunting white whale here. Yeah. And it's not smart to try to move on from him.
Yeah, I think it's both, to be honest. I think he's passionate, but I also think he's incredibly selfish. And we saw that play out in Minnesota.
Right, exactly.
And I think we've seen that play out over the last 3 postseasons where in losing efforts, where he got his against the Chiefs in 2020 and 2021, he was the consummate professional after a loss, standing on the field, watching them celebrate because he wants to know what that feeling is. He never wants to feel the pain of losing again. And then the next year saying, hey, we'll be back. We should have won this one in overtime, yada, yada, yada. The consummate professional when his stat line is 10 for $150 and a couple tutties, right? However, fast forward to 2022, 2023 divisional round, and his stat line is 4 for 35, and they lose to the Bengals by 3 scores. Suddenly, Diggs has got a problem with Josh Allen. Suddenly, Diggs is running out of the locker room before the coach even gets in there. And suddenly, practice squad Duke Johnson has to bring Stephon Diggs back for McDermott's speech, and then he storms back out of the locker room after the speech. So I think it's both. I think it's a problem, but I do think that they're not going to be better off without him. They're going to have to figure out a way to keep him happy, and they'll do that. He's going to get his throughout the regular season. They're going to get his as much as they can in the playoffs, but they can't move on from him because, as I said a moment ago, who could they get that would replace him? You're going to go draft somebody and take a chance? Maybe, but probably not. They feel like they're a Super Bowl ready roster. They're just not able to put it together in the most crucial moments. Yeah, I just think the Bengals did a good job, man. I go back, Dad, I go back to Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. He did a fantastic job, and it's what he does. And, it's frustrating, I'm sure, right, for Diggs and company that they weren't able to get the offense going the way they wanted to, of course, right? But I just think that's what Lou Anarumo does, and you got to overcome that. And I hate feeling like the Bengals are kind of sucking the oxygen out of the room for the rest of the AFC for the next fucking 5 years. Like, Jesus Christ. The AFC dealt with the Patriots for 20 years. They dealt with the Chiefs for the last fucking 5 years. Now they might have to deal with the Bengals for the next 5 years. Like, ooh.
Yeah, I feel like the Bengals are only going to get better. They're going to age like wine. I mean, look, they should not have been able to do what they've done this year. Honestly, with the roster that they have. I mean, look, no discredit to Joe, no discredit to Jamar Chase, no discredit to Joe Mixon. Like, there's no doubt the offense is there, but like the defense, the offensive line, I mean, there are so many reasons why this team should not be sitting at the AFC Championship right now, justifiable reasons, especially when we're talking about the Chiefs, especially when we're talking about the Bills, when we're talking about some absolute juggernauts in AFC. It just, man, they're only going to get better. Yeah, and so it's a terrifying time to be in the AFC. It really is.
Wait until Joe Burrow signs a 5-year deal for $140 million, and everybody goes, oh, they still have cap space.
Oh, they still got all the cap space. Dude, yeah.
He's worth every penny of $50 million. If he signs for any less than that, that's a discount.
It's a disservice to Joe Burrow.
Yeah. When you get into those numbers, though, and you know damn well Joe Burrow, I mean, he's already got some endorsement deals, and he's just going to get more and more and
Yeah.
more because he's a fucking swag master, bud.
I want to see the Joe Burrow that is there for the ring, that is there for the team, that is there. Like, I want to see him who is willing to restructure a deal, whatever, to make sure that shit goes right.
Yep.
I
That's
don't
how you
want
build
to
a dynasty. Ask the Patriots.
exactly.
That's how you
Ask
build a
Tom
dynasty.
Brady and
Yep.
ask all the greats, right? Like
Yep.
we've seen it. We've seen it. Like, I'm a Spurs fan. We've seen it all the time with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. We saw those guys restructure their deals to be able to keep the dynasty intact. So, yeah, I mean, and I think that we're likely to see him do that than to go the Aaron Rodgers route, right? So
I think so too. I hope so.
it's a different mentality, man.
I
Like,
just want to see a guy that does that again.
It's not. Look, the man's swaggy, but he's selfless, and I'm with that.
Yeah,
100%. On to the next one. Brett Freeze writes, rank these playoff teams by their future stock price: Bills, Giants, Cowboys, Jags. So
just so happens to be the 4 losers of this weekend too.
Well, it
worked out perfectly. It's a good question.
I think Bills, if you've already got stock in them, hold. I think that you're safe in holding. I think that we'll see him in the playoffs again next year. I don't think that there's going to be any reason that you should be selling. You want to buy in on them, go for it. I think it's a safe bet. The Giants, they did too good this year to really get any good picks, at least in the first round. So if I have stock, I'm selling it. I've never really had a lot of stock in the Giants to begin with, but yeah, I mean, that's one you could comfortably sell before stocks plummet if they haven't already. Cowboys, I mean, this is a biased opinion, I think, for me and Brett and Stove. But I'm buying, dude. Like, I'm buying. I think that with Dak being the only real variable for me, I think that we're within 2 years of being NFC champions. I think that we can get there. I think it's entirely possible. There are things that need to. I mean, first off, we need to figure out whether the fuck we are going. I mean, Dan Quinn's got to stay. We've got to keep Kellen Moore and McCarthy. Whatever. The quarterback situation has to be handled.
I love that answer. Yeah, whatever.
Dude,
the head coach. Yeah, whatever.
Listen, this is the same head coach
that has a
Super Bowl ring. Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl in spite, like we've said on the show.
Right.
He won a Super Bowl in spite of Mike McCarthy. So I'm not jury's out. I don't give a fuck about Mike McCarthy. I'm buying stock on Cowboys because I do believe that they can get there.
Okay.
And then Jags. I mean, Jags to the moon. Kellen Moore can go. I'd rather have some zebra strike. Listen, I think that that's also a completely viable. I think that's it's completely understandable opinion.
I'm with Brett on Kellen Moore.
I'm just talking I feel like if you bring in a new OC, you're going to have to start restructuring team and everything. It's just too much of a shakeup. That's just where I'm coming from there. Jags to the moon. Yes. I am buying immediately. I'm betting the fucking farm on the Jags. They will be contenders in the AFC again next year. They're going to be a bigger problem next year. Much bigger problem than they were this year because they figured it out. It was just late.
100%.
So that's where I'm at. Rank them. Excuse me. So top to bottom.
You did a good job, right? So you had hold. They're kind of in the middle. Sells at the bottom. So Giants are probably worst.
Jags, Cowboys, third. Bills, right. Giants, top to bottom.
That's kind of what I figured you were saying. Okay.
Yeah. Bills, Cowboys are kind of the only real toss-up for me.
Yeah, for me, I think both, Brett. Honestly, I think Dougie P has done a good job maximizing that roster. But they've got some dogs. ETN is the real deal.
ETN's
Lawrence looks like the real deal. And they've got some guys on that defense. They've got to continue to build that defense, but that defense has some potential. So I think both. Maybe if you're saying more, gun to my head, I take the roster because I think that they would have been better last year without Urban Meyer. And I don't know how many coaches I'd have to get to that I would say as bad as Urban. I don't know that anybody could have been as bad as Urban. So I think I'm buying a little more for the roster, but I'm saying that right now it looks like the perfect marriage.
Yeah. All right. So what's your rank here?
So I'm ranking here. I'll go buy, hold, sell, and then I'll rack and stack them. I'll start with the Bills. I'm holding. I'm with you on the Bills. I'm holding because I do think that is a Super Bowl ready roster with a couple of tweaks that need to happen. I think scheme is the biggest thing that needs to change, both offensively and defensively. And then I'm going to hold based on watching what they do in the draft to see if they're going to be able to reload at a couple key positions, especially on the defense. And they've got to get a real number 2 wide receiver opposite of Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis has had some big playoff games. He had an awful game against the Bengals this weekend, and it allowed the Bengals to continue to focus on Stephon Diggs and take him out of that game. So I'm holding on the Bills, but if I'm at the board meeting, I'm voicing it very loudly that we need to fix linebacker on defense and get a number 2 wide receiver. Giants, I'm selling, and I'm selling as soon as I would have sold before the Philly game because that stock would never be higher than it was before the Philly game. Honestly,
For sure.
I think that game reflects what the Giants are. So for me, I honestly, like if I'm ranking the whole NFL, I'm probably putting the Giants close to 32, like real close to 32.
Damn.
In terms of stock potential. I kid you not.
Damn.
That's how little I think of the Giants. And maybe Dabo proves me wrong again next year, but it was all magic and fucking unicorn farts this year.
Yeah, facts.
The Cowboys, I'm gonna hedge with the Cowboys. I'm gonna sell part of my holdings with the Cowboys, but I'm gonna hold because I'm curious whether or not there's going to be a changing of the guard in Dallas at the head coach position. Does Kellen Moore get promoted, or are we going to see the potential of Sean Payton coming to Dallas? I'm not really sure what that holds. So I'm going to sell part of my position and I'm going to hold the rest because I think that if they get the right person at the helm, that person can overcome Dak's shortcomings, can overcome the issues with the late game clock management. We've seen them lose 2 huge playoff games to the 49ers with just piss poor clock management and piss poor execution. So I'm going to sell part and I'm going to hold part because I think that hold part has the potential for making me a lot of money. The Jags, 100% to Pluto. Seriously, to fucking Pluto with this team. And it's for the same reasons I just mentioned a moment ago when Brett asked, like more for Dougie P or the roster. It's a perfect marriage right now. And I do think that roster has so much potential that if they can just shore up that defense a little bit and maybe you try to sneak in there and get another guy at wide receiver. I don't know that Zay Jones is the answer. So maybe if you can put Christian Kirk as your number 2, get a big time number 1, that offense could be real fucking scary. So Jags to fucking Pluto. So my rankings are Jags, Bills, Cowboys, Giants in terms of potential stock.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
All right. To look at facts.
Let's do it. On to the first one. Cap facts. Buffalo brought their own hype, and it was ultimately their downfall. I'm going to say Cap. And I'm going to say Cap only because I believe truly that despite the hype, Buffalo, like you said, is a Super Bowl ready team. They are fully capable of beating this team. Do I think they hyped themselves out of winning this game? No. I mean, I think that Josh didn't have an answer for that defense. I feel like there was some lack of chemistry going on. There was definitely some disruption in the chemistry within the offensive line. And then, like you were talking about, the lack of the run game really kind of cornered them into just having to go sling the ball down. I mean, it was airtime all day. And that just, it was bad coaching. It was bad play calling. I mean, the weight of that burden, for me, sits squarely on the offensive coordinator and the play callers. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, stopping the Bengals, defensively speaking, with the hindrances that you're dealing with there, not having Von Miller, DeMar Hamlin being out, like all of those, sure, that's understandable. Has nothing to do with their hype. So I would say that this is cap.
I think this is a bit of facts. I'm not all the way on the spectrum to facts, but I do think that there was a bit of Buffalo buying a bit of their own hype, kind of liking the scent of their own stink. And I think that led to some of the complacency from both coordinators, to be honest. And I've had a lot of conversations this week with Bills fans because I obviously have my dad's a Bills fan. My brother still lives in Buffalo. So we talk a lot about kind of the local team. And then I'm in a couple of group chats that have Bills fans. So I get a lot of banter and a lot of kind of exchanges with Bills fans. And one thing has been common across a lot of those conversations. I shouldn't say across every conversation, but a lot of those conversations, especially from like my non-family Bills fans. Because my dad, I think, is pretty realistic. My brother and I just kind of talk as innocent bystanders here. But the fans were even buying the hype. The fans were even talking about how Buffalo's the only team that can beat Buffalo. They said it when they played Miami. Like Skylar Thompson. My brother made the joke in one of the group chats and said, like, Skylar Thompson had the Bills on the ropes. And one of the guys like, no, we fucking didn't. The Bills were fucking beating themselves, yada, yada. Okay, that's fine, right? You made a lot of mistakes, but like Skylar Thompson did kind of have you on the ropes. So I do think it was a bit of the product of kind of buying your own hype and not taking it seriously, because I still think that Buffalo's the best team in the league this year. They just they were flat. They were flat a lot of times this year too, not just in this game. They were flat a lot of times this year. And I think that is a product of kind of buying into your own preseason favorite for the Super Bowl hype. And they're going to have to fix that in the offseason as well.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a very humbling experience for them.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yeah.
On to the next one. Cap Facts. Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo should be a head coach in the NFL next year. I want to see the Bengals win a Super Bowl. I've bought heavy on the Joe Burrow stock since his time at LSU. So selfishly, I don't want to see this happen, but should he be a head coach in the NFL? Facts. The question is, should? Yes. This is facts. He should be. I mean, what he's done with this Buffalo offense, what he's done all season in the latter half of the season, I mean, it is spectacular. It's going to make them Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah, I say facts. I think he should be a head coach in the NFL. I was really surprised. I knew he'd been around for a little while. He's like 58, I think he is. He's been around since like 1997. Really? I had the same response. Wow. He's been around since 1997. I knew he'd been coaching for a while. Yeah. I had to look it up because I was like, God, how does this guy not have a head coaching gig?
So he's been in the league for over 25 years?
He's been a coach in the league for 25 years. Yes.
Right.
It's crazy. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Couldn't say I knew who he was 2 years ago.
I'd heard his name, and he'd been in some good places and had some good defensive lines. He was kind of a defensive line coach guru.
Yeah.
And he'd been like a decent defensive coordinator. This has been his best work. So should he be? I say yes. I don't know why he's not. And maybe it's the age thing. Maybe he doesn't interview well, or maybe it's because he hasn't really been on people's radar prior to the last 2 years. So I think eventually we're going to see possibly Lou Anarumo get a head coaching gig, but I think he should be. So I'm facts on this.
Double facts here. Cat facts, Bill O'Brien will be a difference maker for the Pats next year. So, look, Bill O'Brien had his try. He was a good trier at the head coach position. He was. The Pats had a rough year.
That's being very nice.
I'm being as fucking generous as humanly possible when I say that. The Pats had a real rough year. We asked the question on this show, has Bill Belichick lost control of his locker room? In what galaxy, in what fucking universe is that a question being asked on air?
Right.
And we're probably not the only ones who thought of that, but you know what? That was a fucking Backyard Sports original thought. No one else thought about that except for us. It's exclusive right here. We don't have a Patreon. We probably should. But anyways, with that, I think he will be a difference maker. I think that you've got to have the experience on that coaching staff. Look, between Fat Patricia, between everybody that we have seen in the coaching staff supporting Bill Belichick this year, it has been a fucking disaster. There's got to be changes. And I think that Bill O'Brien stepping out of the head coach world, stepping back into something he's a little bit more comfortable with is going to be a good thing, not only for him, but for that locker room, for that team, because Mac Jones is somebody to build around. So yeah, this is facts.
Yeah. I'm way in on this because of a couple of things. One, we've talked about the +1 rule here. Flint and I talk about +1 all the time with football coaches. You go to a head coach position because you're a really good coordinator, but you're just a really bad head coach. And that was Bill O'Brien with the Texans. They had a couple of good years, and he was just fucking things up there because he had too much control. Sometimes you can have too much control. He's back in a position that he's comfortable, for one. Two, he's back working with a quarterback that he won a national championship with. And three, he knows the Patriot way. So it's not new to him how Belichick runs things. It's not new to him what Belichick expects. What's going on now? It's not new to him what Belichick expects. So I do think that the Patriots next year are going to be a dangerous team to be reckoned with because of the familiarity, the solid, like Bill O'Brien's a big time offensive coordinator in the NFL. So yeah, I think he's going to make a huge difference for the Patriots next year, which I know Bills fans don't want to hear.
Yeah. Well, how many times did we see Mac Jones airing out his frustrations on camera? How many times? You're not going to see that with the Bill O'Brien offensive scheme. You're not. Period. So it'll be a lot more on par with what Mac Jones is used to under Nick Saban. So it'll be good. Big things up ahead for the New England Patriots. On to the next one. Cat facts: the Jets will trade for Aaron Rodgers. Fuck. Listen, I've seen at least 3 tattoos this year of the New York Jets being Super Bowl champions. So, you know, the tattoo removal industry could not be a better time to invest in that world. The Cowboys, there are a bunch of teams that are investing every single year. There's some asshole who does this. Will the Jets trade for Aaron Rodgers? I want to get your opinion first, and then I'll because I just, why the fuck would you even put this question? Like, I've waffled about this. And so, yeah, I'm just going to play Switzerland for now, and I'll defer to you here. What do you got?
I would have said 2 weeks ago that this was cap because I thought Jimmy G was going to the Jets. I thought that it was a done deal that Jimmy G was going to leave the Niners and go to the Jets. However, they fired Mike LaFleur, and I don't know who they're going to hire as their offensive coordinator. They've interviewed a couple of people, but if it's not somebody from the Shanahan tree, I don't know if Jimmy G's the best fit, right? So 2 weeks ago, I'd have been hard cap on this, and it was going to be Jimmy G. I don't know where they're going. But if there's any team in the NFL that I would say they're a quarterback away, it's the Jets. They've got a great defense, some really good offensive weapons. They've got Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Garrett Wilson could win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Breece Hall would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year if he hadn't gotten hurt. And they're going to have the Defensive Rookie of the Year in Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
If there's ever been a situation that maybe Aaron looks at something and says that's a good fit for me, it might be the Jets because of what they've got available. But I'm going to go Cap. I still think that for the Jets, they're looking to get a guy in free agency and continue to build that roster. So I don't think they want to trade away what it would take. It's going to take probably 2 first-round picks to get the Packers to trade Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know what team's going to give up 2 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to go Cap on this. I posed this question to give you just another moment to deliberate. I posed this question because I think that Tom Brady's going to Miami. He's been looking at private schools in Miami. So I wanted to see Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and then Mac Jones with Bill O'Brien back in the AFC. That would have been fucking murderer's row, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're not buying in on AFC stock yet, you need to be, and you should have been, because it's gonna be dangerous waters, trouble, danger. Will Robinson.
I say that as a non-AFC East fan. Like, that'd be fun to watch as an outsider.
Yeah, 100%.
Even with my soft spot for the Bills, that'd be fun to watch.
I don't see Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets.
That's fair.
With that, I don't think he's going to retire, but like there's something. I still don't. I'm not even 100% convinced that he's leaving Green Bay.
I don't think so either. I think he's just trying to leverage for them to go get some people and keep Randall Cobb and things like that.
And sure, advocate for Randall Cobb. I mean, but okay, but like, look, ultimately,
he loves the fucking attention and the drama.
Yes, it's the fucking antics with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, 100%. Aaron Rodgers will never be in another jersey but a Packers jersey. The only jersey that I could ever see him jumping into is a Niners jersey. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So
that'd be wild.
I mean, he'd be going home.
So if you're the Niners and you've got Brock Purdy and Trey Lance on your roster, who you traded up for, but Brock Purdy, who's played really well for you, do you want Brady? Do you want Rodgers? Because there's been some talk, well, Brady might be looking at San Francisco.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Absolutely not. No, you can't. You can't invest in the old guys.
You're building something that could be good for a long time.
Exactly. You're talking about buying a 2023 Rari, and then you're gonna put in like and I'm not
a 27 Model A.
You're gonna get a 2023 Rari, and then you're gonna put like a 97 ZS6 Corvette engine in it with like 180,000 miles. So it's not that it's not a great engine. It's just it's
not the engine you need.
I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady right now, they're fucking city miles. Okay. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. They're fucking city miles.
Go.
Yeah, dude. Like, we need to be. Yeah, this is. If you have Trey Lance, you got Brock Purdy. They're both proven to be great quarterbacks. You got to just stick with those guys. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got?
Damn K.
All right. Time to get to it. Damn K. My damn K is very simple. It's the guy who I've been sucking off this entire episode. It is Joe fucking Burrow, dude. It is Joe Burrow. It is, you better fucking collect some refunds, Joe Burrow. It is Joe Burrow. It's Joe Burrow against all the odds, against everything that he was stacked up against the fucking laughing stock of the AFC. There's no way they're going back again. AFC fucking Cincinnati Bengals. Just a quick little in your face. We're going back to the big show in the AFC, and we're probably going to the Super Bowl, barring any kind of injury, God forbid, knock on wood. It's Joe Burrow. Damn K, killing it. This is I mean, yeah, this is it for me. Joe Burrow, 100%.
Just like last week, I'm glad I put one in the reserve chamber. I thought you might talk a little bit about Tiger King, and that's perfectly fine. My damn K goes out to somebody who people may not expect. It goes out to Chad Henne, man.
Ooh.
Right after
Okay.
Mahomes' injury, they get the ball at the 2-yard line, and he leads a 98-yard touchdown drive, which ended up being the difference in the game. They won by a touchdown. So I go back to the whole Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo thing and what we're talking about with the AFC Championship game. Andy Reid he doesn't blink. He doesn't bat a fucking eye. He doesn't flinch when he loses his fucking $50 million quarterback who's among the best, if not the best, right? He's arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. In my world, he's arguably, because I've got Joe Burrow up there, but it's amazing. He doesn't bat an eye, and Chad Henne leads, I think it was a 13 or 14 play, 98-yard touchdown drive that ends up being the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Damn, K.
Damn, K. The only other direction, my second pick was going to be just the Jags fucking having a phenomenal season. And just like, look, they went out on their shield. They had a great season. And like we talked about earlier, and to answer Brett's question, I mean, stocks are skyrocketing for the Jags. So,
Oh, yeah.
Honorary damn K there. So, we have some Bryans to congratulate.
Yes,
so let's just fuck me sideways. So could we congratulate Brian here? Probably. We could. It's appropriate. And we would congratulate the correct Brian.
For a 38-7 drubbing.
But I'm going to congratulate Dalton fucking Schultz. I'm going to congratulate Dalton Schultz. You are a professional tight end for the Dallas Cowboys in the National Football League. You've ran at least one 2-minute drill. At least. You've been through the rules, maybe.
At least.
You've been through enough to know what you should do, what you need to do. And we saw piss poor clock management from the coaching staff, from the quarterback. But what we didn't need is to have Dalton Schultz dictate the outcome of this game. And that's what we saw. We saw a key critical failure coming from a tight end who had a lights out performance against the Buccaneers. I do not understand it. I will never understand it. I will understand this less than I will understand the last play of the game. I am so fucking disappointed in Dalton Schultz. Congrats, Brian, you son of a bitch.
Ugh, what a fucking disaster. I'm staying in the same game.
Do it. Just do it.
It's Zeke.
Just do it. Hasn't he been through enough?
Oh God. He got pancaked like Wile E. Coyote under an Acme Amber in a Roadrunner fucking attempt.
Fucking meep.
Oh, it was so bad. Like, he was set up for failure. I get it, right?
Dude,
like,
there was never a chance, dude.
it's like the play designer thought, oh, they're not going to rush the corner. Not with Zeke.
Surely there had to have been a moment as Zeke was getting ready to snap this ball where he's just like,
oh, fuck.
He grabs the ball. Oh, just if you could see through that shaded visor, you would have seen the soul leave that man's body, knowing that he was about to get fucking blasted into another dimension.
That's so bad.
under the turf.
They they had live feed going of them scraping him off the turf with a snow shovel. And for that, I say, congrats, Brian.
Damn near had to Zamboni this man off of the fucking turf, dude. It was a tough go. What a horrible last play if you were Ezekiel Elliott. God bless America.
So bad.
It was tough. I mean, listen, as a Cowboys fan, as the resident Cowboys fan on this show, it was a tough watch. You know, Stove did a great job of holding them accountable as far as the offensive performance. I hated that for the defense. I did. But that last play was one of the worst fucking things I've ever seen in a football game. For me, this measures up to the butt fumble. Like, it is that level. It's that level embarrassment.
It is worse than the QB slide last year.
Oh,
it is worse than that. Yeah, so bad.
Because not to say that you had like a great chance, but you had a chance.
Right.
Now with that play, you didn't.
Yeah.
No timeouts. You didn't have a choice. I mean, whatever. You had a choice. I take that back. You had a fucking choice.
Right.
And you found a way to choose wrong. Any closing thoughts, Gary?
With all the comedy we had there over the last couple of minutes, championship weekend, we're getting ready. We're close to Super Bowl Sunday, and we're gonna know after this Sunday who is playing in the Super Bowl, and it's a fantastic time of year. It's almost like Christmas morning for the NFL fan. So, real excited. It all comes down to this.
Absolutely.
In each conference.
My last closing remark is just, the excitement that I have, the idea that the Sunday ticket is coming to YouTube TV.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. With that being said, I am faithful to fucking Scott Hansen in NFL Red Zone.
Oh, yeah.
So I may not even partake in the Sunday ticket just to show the loyalty to the Red Zone. But closing remarks is simple. Like you said, championship weekend. I mean, this is it. Aside from the big show, this is next best. We're not getting the level of competition in the AFC that I really wanted to see, obviously, with the Pat Mahomes injury. But is it still possible? Like you said, yes. We've made our picks. Let's see how it turns out. But I'm damn sure looking forward to what's going to go down this weekend, and then who's going to be punching their tickets to the big show. We've got plenty of entertainment planned for this weekend, and I am looking forward to partaking in every minute of it. So from all of us here at Backyard Sports, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to come in next Tuesday night and check in with us as we debrief the NFC and AFC championships and then begin the Super Bowl conversation. Always appreciate you guys tuning in. So Senior, Stove, Brett, Lionel, all of you guys, be sure to tune in. We'll see you next week. All of us here at Backyard Sports. Thank you guys for tuning into the Blitz. My name's Raul Herrera. I got Gary Freeze with me. We're out of here.